Today on the show, you and I discuss my new favorite expression, Boppin Squiddles, and why people maybe should settle down about their taxes.
Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
So, people talk to me all the time about being in a band, and it's interesting. I was in a band, on tour, on the road, living primarily in tour buses, hotels, and on people's couches from the time when I was about 16, 17 years old till when I was about 23. 7 or so years. And, well, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't the most massive chunk of my life, but I don't know. I kind of view it this way. It was a lot like college. I didn't go to college. Much to my parents' chagrin, I said no thank you very much to a full scholarship to Tufts and New England Conservatory of Music because, well, my band had gotten a record deal. And as I've said many times on the show before, you offer a teenage boy a choice between a dorm room and a tour bus, he's going to choose the tour bus every single time. There's not much room for debate with this. But I kind of view being in a band, even though it's not how I've spent the majority of my life, as a formative experience in that it was sort of, I don't know, it's like college. It's funny. A couple years ago, and it was crazy, no one ever thought this would happen, but a couple years ago, I started getting checks in the mail from my band. Only because we signed this massive record deal, like ridiculous amounts of money. We got signed right before downloading sucked all the fun and cash out of the music business. And so we got this ludicrous amount of money. We spent a fortune making our record. We locked out 2 top-of-the-line recording studios where folks like Mariah Carey and Celine Dion had made their records. I remember Billy Joel came in one day because he needed the vocal booth. And we're like, okay, let's wait for Billy Joel to finish up. We spent a lot of money. We were handed a lot of money. We spent a lot of money. And, well, we didn't sell a ton of records. We sold some, but not a ton. And you got to sell a ton of records to recoup that kind of cash. So it was very surprising to me a little while ago when I started getting checks in the mail. And I was like, oh man, all that time has come and gone. And I guess something happened, enough copies of our record ticked over or got streamed on some sort of streaming service to where we paid back A&M Records and Universal Music all the money that we owed them, and now every once in a while I get a check in the mail. Not for much, but a little bit, and that's kind of gratifying because there's lots of bands that never recoup. So even if it was years and years later, it was a nice feeling. And it made me think about the time that I spent in a band. It informed a lot of my sensibilities. Because when you're in a band, there's a couple things that you're doing. You're taking it to the people. You are winning or losing every single night of your life on the road based on your own merits. And yeah, I guess you can turn around and blame it on the bass player, but when you're what I was, when you're the front man of a band, it's up to you to get out there and make it happen. Your coworkers have to be taking care of business. Your band has to be tight, but win or lose, it's kind of on your shoulders. I suppose that taught me some personal responsibility. And then there were some other interesting things about being in a band. I got some really kind of interesting economical lessons. It was my role, and I don't know exactly how I wound up doing this, to settle up with merch every single night. I think the theory was this: hey, you're the lead singer. You go stand by the merch booth. Everybody recognizes you because you're out front. That way we're going to sell more stuff. And so we would do that. I would do that. But because of that, I got tasked with handling the money. And because of that, I also got tasked with settling at the end of the evening. I had to figure out how many dollars per head we did. Say we played an arena that held 5,000 people and we sold $5,000 worth of merch. Well, we did $1 a head that night. I learned those economics. And then after we'd done $1 a head, I had to settle with the venue. I had to do the taxes. And doing the taxes, that was illuminating. I was like, ooh, sales tax. I'm here in a band trying to make a living, hucking it out on the road. Sometimes I get a hotel room. Other times I'm sleeping, well, on a floor or something like that. This was the early punk rock days. And the government's going to come along and take a piece of my hard-earned blood, sweat, and tears. That's annoying. And then, well, I remember the very first time I did my taxes when my band got to America. And I was making, look, I was like 17 years old at the time. I made more money than I'd ever seen in my life. It wasn't very much, but just that I could have a couple $1,000s in the bank, to me seemed like a never-ending supply that would never, ever run out. By the way, a couple of years later, it ran out, and it ran out hard. And I had to start back at less than zero. But when I did my taxes, I was self-employed. Now, this whole thing of getting a paycheck and having the taxes taken out at the source, that to me is still a relatively new idea. For the vast majority of my professional life, I have been kind of an entrepreneur, kind of self-employed, an independent contractor, a freelance something or other. I don't know what you would call it. But the bottom line is, being in a band kind of informed my politics. And if you've ever been a person that tries to start a business or runs a business, or if you've ever been an entrepreneur, if you've ever been self-employed or a freelance something or other, I'm sure you've had a similar experience. When you take taxes out at the source, at a paycheck, you kind of sort of don't think about it. It doesn't register. You kind of just take home what you take home and don't give it too much thought. I mean, you can go through your pay stub and you can go line by line and go, oh man, that seems like a lot of money. And then when you get your W-2 at the end of the year, you go, oh, that's how much I paid? And what? Oh, gee whiz, that kind of sucks. But you have to be looking for that sort of thing. And most people aren't looking for that sort of thing because, well, they get some money back at the end of the year in that situation. If you're self-employed, come April, you have to write Uncle Scam a check. And then you really start thinking about it. You go, oh my gosh, I have to give the government 35% of what I made last year. Where is this going? How does this benefit me? What is going on? I hope those freaking so-and-sos that got elected that are living off of these tax dollars, I hope that they're doing the job that they're supposed to do. Are they? Doesn't seem like they are. Can I get them on the phone? No, I can't, but I pay their salary. What the hell, man? What the hell? Being an entrepreneur, being self-employed, being someone who's trying to make their own way in the world, being someone who does not have taxes taken out at the source will make you angry and make you want to hold your elected officials accountable. And that's really important, especially in light of all the confusion that's going on right now during this tax season. What is it? We'll clear up a few matters next.
Real radio.
104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So when I was a kid, I was in this band, this sort of screaming rap metal punk rock thing. And, well, it gave me a bit of a punk rock attitude towards politics and economics. And the punk rock attitude toward economics is this. When you are working for yourself, when you're an independent contractor, when you're an entrepreneur, when you are trying to start and run a business, which is essentially what you're doing when you're a professional musician, you, unlike the vast majority of the rest of the workforce, you don't get cut a check with taxes taken out at the source. No. Right around April, Uncle Scam, if you've done your taxes, which I always diligently did, goes, hey, you're going to owe us money. You know, everything that you made last year, we're going to need about 35 to 40% of that, depending on what state you call home. And you go, holy crap, really? Damn. Seems a little harsh. I'm going to hand you this money. What are you going to do with it? Well, that's for us to know. I'm going to hand you this money. Whose pockets is it going into? Well, these politicians, these elected officials. Really? Huh. I didn't vote for that guy, but he's going to be living off of it, you say. Well, yeah. So I can get him on the phone because he's working for me. No. You got to wait for an audience. You have to write letters. You have to go stand in line. You have to wait to catch them outside their office. You have to essentially hijack them to talk to the people who you cut a check to every April. So weirdest thing, government is the weirdest freaking thing. If my boss, and I've said this time and time again, but if my boss wants to see me, well, guess what? They're my boss and they're responsible for my paycheck. So if the company I work for, or if the boss I answer to says, I'm going to need to see you in my office at 11, guess what? I'm in their office at 11. It's just sort of the way it works. Except if you're a politician, in which case the person that cuts you the check has to go to your office, and there's a very good chance that you won't let them in, and a very good chance that you don't really have to answer their questions, even though it's their blood, sweat, and tears, providing the shirt on your back and the food you put in your mouth every single day. It's a weird dichotomy, isn't it? Anyways, that is sort of like the punk rock attitude towards economics and politics, I suppose. What would you call that? Libertarian? I'm not sure. But when you don't have the sort of hoodwinky nature of the average American paycheck, where they go, we're just going to take this out at source, and there's going to be a bunch of stuff that you have to read through, and you have to really kind of think about it to get angry about it. Yeah. When you have been trained in a Pavlovian sort of way to go, that's all right, because that's all you've ever known, well, you kind of forget to be angry and hold people accountable. At least I've sort of noticed that. There came a point in my life where I kind of switched gears from being somebody that worked for themselves to being someone that worked for a company. And ever since that happened, occasionally I go, I'm paying what? For what? That money never hit my account anyway. So I'm not that angry to see it go. If it hits your account and then you got to take it out and give it to somebody else, ooh, then you get steamed. Then you start to question. And I was really interested over the last, ever since people started doing their tax returns. I was really interested to hear people angry that they're not getting as much money back as they did this time last year. And I get that. I get the way of thinking. Hey, I was counting on a check for this many dollars. That's what I got last year. That's what I got the year before. Now I'm getting less. Freaking Trump and his tax plans. Average tax refunds are down 8.4%. That's less money in your pocket when you do your taxes. Must be the Trump tax cuts. Now, look, this is not in any way, shape, or form a pro-Trump sentiment. This is not in any way, shape, or form expressing sympathy for his tax plans. But this is sort of a point that I've pointed out to a couple of my friends who were complaining about this, and I think it bears mentioning. Average tax refunds, they're down 8.4% in the wake of tax cuts. Okay, you're getting 8.4% less money back. But the refunds, they're not a tax rate. Refunds are down because most Americans receive more money in their paychecks because the withholding tables were adjusted. Now, on the one hand, it's nice to have a lump of money handed to you in January or April or whenever you do your taxes. That's great. And it's got to chagrin anyone to get less back. But here's the thing. You were getting more back before because you were giving the government a larger interest-free loan. We already pay their salaries. When we get taxes back after we do our taxes, when we get a refund, well, we gave them for a year an interest-free loan. Can you get an interest-free loan? I can't, but the government can with our taxes. Kind of steams me. I hope it steams you too. If you are doing taxes right, I think you should aim to owe $1 in taxes every single year. You should do your tax return, and your accountant, your tax person, or whatever program you run your year's worth of economics through should go, you owe the government $1. You owe the government 50 cents. You don't owe the government anything. But not you're getting money back. Every time you get money back from the government, the larger that amount of money is, the more you've loaned the government interest-free for the past 12 months. I don't know about you, but I feel like they're not doing the greatest job. I don't feel like cutting them breaks. I don't feel like giving them extra amounts of the money that I work for to hold on to for a longer amount of time, for them to play with, for them to mess up with. I find the government to be inept. I don't trust them. I don't trust Democrats or Republicans. I don't trust politicians. And I don't feel like they should be able to hold on to a couple $1,000s of my money every single year and give it back kind of sort of when they feel like it. I did have some money coming back to me last year. And you know what? Even though it was coming back to me, I had to go through a whole bunch of extra steps. They were holding on to it for longer because I hired someone to do my taxes. My taxes are difficult and nuanced, and I wanted to make sure I did them right. And because of that, I had to spend extra time on the phone with my tax professional and someone at the IRS and me going, hey, I've authorized this guy. This is you hearing my voice. I've authorized this guy to do my taxes. Will you please now release the money that you owe me? I had to jump through extra hoops last year to get the money that I loaned the government interest-free for the last 12 months. That didn't make me feel good. So, yeah, the average tax refunds are down 8.4% in the wake of some tax cuts. Well, like I said, your refund, that's not your tax rate. Refunds are down because pretty much everybody got more money in their paychecks because the withholding tables were adjusted. And refunds, like I said, are giving the government an interest-free loan. So you should aim to owe $1 or less in taxes every single year. Don't give them your hard-earned cash to hold on to. Get into it with your tax professional. Remember to stay angry. Remember to hold your elected officials accountable. And don't just give them cash for the sake of it.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land.
All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
So you don't want to be the boy or girl who cried wolf. You don't. There are certain things that, well, need to be treated seriously. And the idea of equality and combating inequality and combating prejudice and combating racism is something that you kind of sort of don't want to mess around with. And look, yesterday on the show, we spent the entire show yesterday talking about the idea of things like white privilege. And as you and I discussed, there's lots of white people that don't have a prejudiced bone in their body, that have never treated anyone differently because of their gender, their sexuality, the color of their skin, where they're from, how they choose to pray, that get reminded a lot of the time that, hey, just because you're not racist doesn't mean there's not racism. And what are you going to do about institutionalized racism and recognize your white privilege? And that fatigues a lot of people because they're going, just a good person with goodwill in my heart and malice toward none. Why all of a sudden am I being held accountable? And as we discussed on the show yesterday, the hurt, the scars that racism has left, that prejudice has left, these are really recent things. As we said yesterday, Shelley Wade, our friend who's on the show every now and then, African American, her mother, just one generation back, her mother, when she was a little girl, was arrested for not giving up her seat to a white person on a bus. Seems like the sort of thing Abraham Lincoln dealt with. But it wasn't. It was shockingly recent. And so, for that reason, whenever people go, what are you going to do about institutionalized racism? Rather than knee-jerking to, hey, I'm a good guy. I'm not racist. I don't do anything wrong. I keep to myself. I keep my head down. I'm just decent to everybody I meet. Rather than reacting that way. Now when people go, what are you going to do about institutionalized prejudice and racism? I kind of like to lean in and go, what can I do? Help me understand. Help me learn. Help me be productive. Help me help all of us move closer toward a world of equality. And because these are serious issues that carry real scars and real hurt, and because America is not equal yet, you want to take this stuff seriously. And you don't want to be the boy or girl that cried wolf. Meaning there are real issues of prejudice, there are real issues of racism, and there are moments where people are just looking for something to be mad about. And when you do that, you negate very real issues. You stop them from being taken seriously. You encourage that dialogue of, I told you there was no racism. That's ridiculous. That's not racist. Perfect example being the ESPN tennis analyst. Do you remember this? ESPN tried to do this quietly. And they kind of succeeded in doing it quietly, but you and I are going to talk about it now. Do you remember the ESPN analyst who was fired by the network after people demanded his head on a pike? Do you recall this? This was 2 years ago. This guy called Doug Adler, he was serving as a B-team analyst at the Australian Open, working for ESPN. And he was suddenly fired after a tweet carrying a New York Times reporter's ID claimed that Adler on ESPN had just called Venus Williams for no given reason beyond his open, blatant, uncontrollable racism a gorilla. Yeah, a New York Times reporter said that he'd called Venus Williams a gorilla. Here's the thing. It couldn't have been further from the truth. And had that New York Times reporter bothered to dig a little deeper, rather than seeking to immediately manufacture some outrage, they would have seen that what this guy Doug Adler actually did was complimented Williams. Didn't call her a gorilla. Complimented her for putting the gorilla, G-U-E-R-I-L-L-A, very different from G-O-R-I-L-L-A. Complimented Williams for putting the gorilla effect on charging. And this is tennis terminology. Guerrilla, as in soldiers, as in warfare. Guerrilla-style ambushes. This is apparently in tennis when you're doing something called poaching the net. And guerrilla-style ambushes where you're poaching the net, this is actually, if you are in any way, shape, or form an aficionado of tennis, which I'm not, but I've been around it long enough to have heard some of it. I used to enjoy watching Wimbledon when I was a kid growing up in England. I know. It was fun. But this is a common enough phrase to where even the most minute amount of research would have evidenced the fact that he wasn't saying something racist. But no. Oh, Venus Williams was on the screen. I heard the word gorilla. This must be uncontrollable Klan-esque racism. This guy has an upside-down burning cross in his front yard, and he's been given a job at ESPN. I will not have any of that. I'm going to get some clicks with my tweet and drive some traffic to the New York Times website. Yeah. And like I said, he complimented Williams for putting the guerrilla, and this is a direct quote, putting the guerrilla effect on charging. Guerrilla-style ambushes, poaching the net, like I said. It's a common phrase to describe tennis strategy. And immediately, instantly, if not sooner, this guy, Doug Adler, he was fired. He was defamed, and he was fired. But fast forward to a couple years later, what happened? Well, here's the thing. When you say something like that on television, in a form of recorded media, it's easy to go back and check the tape. And so he did what he should have done. He sued ESPN. Now all the network has to say is that they have, quote, amicably resolved our dispute with Doug Adler. And they've rehired him. Yeah. He got a substantial monetary settlement because, well, they fired him. Because they went off all half-cocked based on a reporter's tweet. And, well, thanks to that, he's got some extra cash in the bank. And, oh, they rehired him. Yeah, he's been returned to ESPN's payroll. And it looks as though he's going to be working tennis events for the network moving forward. They did this all kind of quietly. And you know what? They shouldn't have done it quietly. They did something stupid. They did something reactionary. They caved to the manufactured outrage of the thronging masses. The guy said nothing wrong. The guy said nothing racist. The guy used a tennis terminology. Used a piece of tennis terminology. And because they were so eager to toe the politically correct line, they did the wrong thing. And now it's been proven they did the wrong thing. They had to hand him some cash and give him his job back. No fun for Doug Adler. He'll be okay, though. He'll be all right. I'm not standing up for the rights of small-time tennis reporters. I'm telling you that, well, there is, as we discussed earlier, so much inequality, so much actual racism, so much hurt in this world because the color of a person's skin causes them to be treated differently, and that must be combated everywhere we see it. But when you do something like this, you feed into the false narrative that, oh, see, there's no racism. He wasn't actually being racist every time. No. By responding to manufactured outrage, because people are looking for clicks, people are looking to incite the rabble on Twitter, by responding to this sort of thing, you negate real instances of racism. And when you do that, you hold each and every one of us, especially the victims of any kind of prejudice, back. And that, my friend, is why ESPN should publicly apologize. For the sake of all of us and for the sake of equality.
more AD on the radio.
You and I will get into the events of today in our segment My Witness News in just a little bit. Right now, though, what with Valentine's Day right around the corner, my question for you is this. What stage of life are you in? Are you single? Are you dating? Are you married? Because, well, these are three very different stages of life to be in, and depending on which one you're in, Valentine's Day is a very different and unique experience, as is perfectly pointed out by comic Aaron Kleber.
Oh, I love comedy. I love comedy clubs. Because it's perfect date night. Yeah, it is. It is. What are you married? And shut up. You don't get it. You don't understand. I'm a married dude. Where's all the married people? Look how look. Yeah, you see how excited they are? This is a special night, okay? They're going to have sex with the lights on tonight. This is, guys, it's an important night, guys. They've been planning this for 4.5 months. You don't get it. I see a lot of young sweetie pies in here. You don't know nothing. Are you kidding me? Where are all the daters? All you sweetie pie daters. Shut up. Shut up. You guys still touching each other's privates? That's adorable. You still making out in the Target parking lot for no damn reason? Just kissing for no damn reason. It's not even your anniversary and you're just kissing in the parking lot. What's the matter with you? Just go get your shower curtain, knock that off.
Oh, and super quick before we get into the news, we were talking about this on the show the other day. For the first time since 1901, you cannot buy candy hearts with messages on them this Valentine's Day. The original ones, anyway. There's plenty of knockoffs. Those are going to be available, I guess. But the original ones are called Sweethearts, and they were made by Necco. Necco went out of business. The company that bought Necco are bringing them back next year, but there wasn't time to do a run this year. Here's Jim Gaffigan on whether or not they're even that good.
Valentine's Day. There's the big red hearts filled with the gamble chocolate, or the tiny chalk heart-shaped antacids. I know I make you nauseous. Here's a Tums with Hug Me written on it. Maybe that'll help.
Oh, this was absolutely insane. I read about it online. I thought it was an Onion article. It was not an Onion article. Did you see a guy in Houston went to smoke some weed, as one does, in a place where it's illegal, in an abandoned house? He did this past week just gone by. And he found, waiting for him inside this abandoned house, a 1,000-pound tiger in a beat-up cage secured only with a screwdriver and a nylon strap. And well, he thought he was smoking some excellent stuff. He thought he was hallucinating at first, and then made an anonymous call to the cops. They found this tiger yesterday and tranquilized it and moved it to an animal shelter. Here are the neighbors and the police and the city spokeswoman.
It's a very large tiger.
It's kind of scary because there's a tiger not here in Houston. That's not normal.
They assured us that it wasn't the effects of the drugs that made them believe that they were seeing a tiger. So first we thought it might have been a prank or they were high.
She's pretty large, so she doesn't look underfed. She was thirsty, wasn't especially threatening. They did tranquilize her right before they transported her. It's a beautiful, beautiful animal, and we want it to live a happy, healthy life. And living in a cage is not optimal circumstances for anyone involved.
So bearing in mind that Valentine's Day is right around the corner and love and romance and the physical adult expression of these things are all in the air, this is kind of an interesting one. Did you hear about this new invention? It lets you press a button to tell your partner that you're in the mood to get it on. Yeah. Now here's the thing. If you do not ask your significant other to get busy as often as you want because you hate getting rejected when they're not in the mood, this could be for you. There's a Kickstarter going right now for something called the Love Sync, which is a pair of buttons. It's an alarmingly simple idea. But you know what? This is a complicated subject. And, well, I suppose the longer people are together and the more responsibilities they have and the more stress the guy faces and the more parenting responsibilities both of them face, it can be easy to not get on the same page with regard to this kind of thing. I hear from people that have been in relationships for the long haul that the good stuff happens at the very beginning, then you have kids, then about 18 years later, you get busy again. And in between that time, it can be a difficult and painful subject trying to get on the same page with regard to doing it. And so this is actually an interesting and alarmingly simple idea. There's this, like I said, Kickstarter going right now for something called the Love Sync. It's a pair of buttons, one for you and one for your partner, and you're supposed to press your button whenever you're in the mood to get busy. If your partner has also pushed their button, then your button starts glowing green and you know that you're both up for it. But if they haven't pushed their button, then you know that they're not. And since they won't know that you press your button, it's not like they're rejecting you. They just happen to not be in the mood at that moment. Now, here's the thing. Should couples in long-term relationships be able to have these conversations and communicate themselves without the aid of something with a device like this? Yes, they should. But life is complicated. And sometimes loving each other, I suppose, is not enough. So this is, like I said, an interesting and alarmingly simple idea. It's a pretty niche situation, but you know what? I think this could actually lead to more doing it for some couples. And I guess that most people think that's a good thing. If you're interested, it's pretty cheap. It's like less than $50. I think $45 for a set of Love Sync buttons. And they're set to ship in August if the Kickstarter hits its target. Right now, it's only about 1/3 of the way to its $7,500 goal. Here's their pitch.
Love Sync is a device that lets you know when both of you are in the mood for some hippity-dippity.
It's super simple. All you have to do is place a button at each of your bedsides, and when you're feeling a little randy, you just anonymously push the button. There's no risk of rejection. If only one of you pushes the button, nothing happens, and your partner's none the wiser. But if your partner's also ready for a pants-off dance-off, they'll press their button. The Love Sync technology combines these anonymous inputs and recognizes that there is consensus. It lets you both know by emitting a swirling glow from the buttons. Pressing the button multiple times sets a longer time period that you'd be down for Boppin Squiddles.
Rumpus Humpus.
Hack in the sack.
2-person push-ups?
It's amazing for those times where you wouldn't mind being surprised in the middle of the night.
Which I avoided in the past, fear of waking the beast.
Love Sync is perfect for partners because it alleviates sexual frustration.
Now you'll always know when you and your significant other are ready for sexy time.
Wait a second. What'd they call it? I think this might be my new favorite expression.
Boppin Squiddles.
And if you are, and by the way, that is my new favorite expression, if you are in the stage of life where you're looking for somebody to bop squiddles with, if you're not quite there yet, well, where do you look for a potential squiddle bopper? Where do you think is a good place to meet significant others? I mean, the internet would probably be the obvious answer, but apparently people are more than open to flirting in a grocery store. Now, I would never dream of doing such a thing. I mean, I would have to be reasonably sure of success to bother someone while they're trying to grocery shop and get in and get out and all of the above. I would. I find that to be invasive. But here's the thing. Apparently, people really do meet at the grocery store and fall in love. It's not just a dumb cliche from romantic comedies. New study looked into it. It does happen. Maybe a lot more than you think. 32% of people say that they knew at least one person who's gone on a date with someone they met at the store. And 46% of us have flirted with someone while buying groceries. As Jerry Seinfeld pointed out, produce section, very provocative. Lots of touching, smelling, squeezing, things of that nature. Feeling of melons. The part about meeting people in the frozen food aisle might be a cliche, though. According to the survey, the 3 spots where you're most likely to meet someone are beer, wine, and liquor, and the produce section, and the checkout line. The survey also asked people to rate the best pickup lines or icebreakers to use at the grocery store. The best one for men to use is apparently, "Hey, I can't find something. Do you know where it is?" And the best one for women to use is, "Hey, can you help me reach something?" Now you know. Do with that what you will. Who knows, you could be squiddle bopping in no time.
Boppin Squiddles.